A brotherhood known for its unwavering fidelity to tradition has decided to publicly atone for the latest Vatican document, which they believe offends the Virgin Mary, a powerful move that is echoing far and wide. Let's see where this story ends. Stay with us until the end. The latest note released by the Vatican, signed by Victor Manuel Fernandez and endorsed by Pope Leo XIII, did not go unnoticed. It unleashed a real storm inside and outside the Leonine walls, making corridors vibrate where a latent malaise had been felt for some time. The moment the document called into question the Marian titles of all time, those that generations of faithful have pronounced without trembling, voices arose from all sides, as if a red line had suddenly been crossed. In the Vatican palaces, where prudence is often the golden rule, this time an unusual buzz was heard, a sign that even among those accustomed to institutional discipline, fear is creeping in, that a dangerous breach in the continuity of tradition is opening up. The note was presented as a call for doctrinal clarity, but in the perception of many, it sounded rather like a sudden break on popular devotion, almost as if the language of the believing people had suddenly become embarrassing. When the document began to circulate, the Priestly Society of St. Pius VI reacted with a frankness that surprised even those who usually follow its most severe analyses. From the headquarters in Menzingen, in a press release dated November 11th, came a position that grants no discounts. According to the fraternity, the note signed by Victor Manuel Fernandez not only weakens Marian tradition, but also caricatures the Church's terminology, distorting concepts that have nourished the faith of the simple for centuries. Even more, it denounces an attempt to diminish the role that God Himself entrusted to Our Lady in the work of redemption, a role that, in the fraternity's vision, has never been a simple devotional affectation, but a truth rooted in the history of salvation. Hence, the accusation that has already made the rounds in the circles most sensitive to Marian theology. Her universal and necessary role in the dispensing of graces is weakened to the point of almost denying it. A harsh judgment that shows how, for the fraternity, this note is not a technical clarification, but an open wound in the very flesh of doctrine. And when the statement states that Fernandez dethrones the Virgin Mary and offends divine wisdom, the measure of the distance becomes total, because it is no longer a question of an academic debate, but of what many perceive as a direct affront to the Mother of God, and to those who for generations have invoked her with those titles which are now called into question. Faced with what they unhesitatingly define as a public offense to the Virgin, the priests of the priestly fraternity of St. Pius X have chosen to respond not with a simple statement, but with a gesture of reparation that involves the entire community. The text released by Menzingen states the decision to invite all the priests of the fraternity and all the faithful to join in a prayer of reparation on Sunday, November 16th. It is a general appeal that does not concern a single chapel or a single nation, but every public mass celebrated that day, as a visible sign of a wound perceived as collective. The statement specifies that a specific intention will be added to each celebration for the offense and scandal committed, an addition that transforms the Sunday liturgy into a public act of spiritual protest. And, as a final act, after each Mass, the Litany of the Madonna and the Stabat Mater will be recited, two prayers that the fraternity has chosen not by chance, but because they evoke the suffering and participation of the Mother of God in the sacrifice of her Son, a way to reiterate, in light of the words of the dicastery, precisely those truths that they believe have been obscured. In concluding the statement, the priestly fraternity of St. Pius X raises the tone even further, almost as if to seal the entire affair with an appeal that speaks directly to the faith of the simple. After announcing the prayer of reparation, the text openly invokes the Virgin as co-redeemer, attributing to her a power of intercession capable, we read, of dispelling the present darkness and of rekindling the faith of her children. It is a powerful passage, not only for the choice of titles, but for the way they are used. Precisely those terms that the Vatican Note considers inappropriate are proclaimed with even more force, almost as if to demonstrate that no document can admonish what the Society considers a living part of tradition. At the end of the statement, the phrase of Christ on the cross is reported, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," a reminder that in the context takes on an unequivocal tone. It is suggested that the offense is not only doctrinal, but spiritual, and that the response should not be polemic, but rather reparation. Thus, on November 11th, Menzingen put down in black and white a position that in style and content aims not at compromise, but at testimony, aware of speaking not only to a wounded Catholic world, but also to what it perceives as a disoriented institution. This story does not come in isolation, and those who follow the ecclesiastical world closely know this well. This is now the second act of public reparation to shake Catholicism in a surprisingly short space of time, a sign that these are not sporadic episodes, but a fault line that continues to open in the same place. And it is even more significant that these gestures did not originate from the Vatican, nor were they promoted by the central structures of the Church, but by bishops, priests, and communities who openly reject the idea of having to bow to a compromise perceived as dangerous to the integrity of the faith. Thus, while Rome issues notes that seek to define, clarify, or curb certain traditional languages, in the ecclesiastical peripheries, acts of reparation are multiplying. These, while not formally opposing the Pope, suggest that a portion of the clergy is no longer willing to accept, without reacting, what they consider a deviation. It is in this climate that an increasingly insistent question is growing, almost whispered, but spreading from one end of the Catholic world to the other. What will Pope Leo XIV and Victor Manuel Fernandez do now? Will they remain firm on the line drawn by the note, or will they have the courage to take a step back in the face of the growing backlash? No one can say, but the feeling, even in the most cautious corridors, is that this time the answer cannot be avoided. Too many eyes are looking toward Rome, and too many faithful are waiting to see if their voices will be ignored or finally heard. If you feel the need to rediscover the peace, beauty, and depth of authentic faith, let Gregorian chant accompany you. Visit Fides et Traditio. You'll find voices, prayers, and sounds that bring the heart back to the silence of God. Find the link in the description. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.